Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the On the Pony Express podcast. I am Billy Embody. We have got a lot to talk about. This is going to probably go a little long because we have so much to discuss. SMU beats Memphis, holds off that late drive to finish out the regular season 7-5. The Mustangs now awaiting their bowl bid, finding out where they're going to go. Probably going to happen on Sunday, maybe Monday after the conference championship games. And SMU is in play for some local ones from what I'm hearing, and also some ones that are a little bit farther away. So we'll kind of talk about some of that, but I do want to go back to first the SMU Memphis game. What a gritty game for SMU. I think just in general, you have the hot start from Memphis. They go right down the field and score. You have an SMU team that has not really put together anything early on in the game. They had some things to kind of build off of, and you thought, okay, all right, if they can kind of piece this together, they're going to be able to be in this game really, right to the end, and that's where they were at. I thought the answers SMU provided to what Memphis did throughout the game obviously worked out. I feel like Memphis was trending to run away with it, kind of like Tulane, but SMU really bounced back and said, you know what, we're going to step up here and we're not going to let that happen. The defense didn't have a great game, but they got stops when they needed it. Memphis kind of did what they wanted. They shot themselves in the foot a couple times. They had 439 total yards, so nothing crazy in a way. But this was a game that kind of took on a slower pace. Both teams ate up the clock on some of their scoring drives. Both teams were very efficient on third downs. Memphis was 11 of 17, SMU 11 of 18 on the night, and both were perfect on fourth down conversions. Memphis held the ball 31 minutes and 18 seconds. Really, they got going with a impressive almost 6.5 minute drive to open the game. And they did whatever they wanted on that drive. They threw the ball. They, for the most part, ran it really well and went up 7-0. It wasn't until early second quarter where, Jordan Curley catches a touchdown pass from Tanner Mordecai. Great little design on that one in the red zone for SMU to tie it at 7. And then Memphis answers right back. They go right down the field in just under 3 minutes to score. SMU volleys back right before the end of the half on a 6.5 minute drive that was capped by a Tyler Levine touchdown. And then the defense gives up a field goal drive at the end of the half. And I mean, look, you look at that drive, Memphis gets the ball with about 1:15 to go, and they go right down, and it looks like things are, they're going to get a touchdown before the end of the half. And the defense kind of bowed up. They made some plays, and were able to hold it to a field goal. From there, SMU reeled off 10 unanswered points to start the second half. I thought it was super important for SMU to get that going early on. The defense got some stops, and SMU was able to take a 24-17 lead. Memphis then responds. They fumble away the PAT, and it gets blocked. SMU takes advantage and opens the fourth quarter with a Rashee Rice touchdown. And then, again, a Colin Rogers field goal about halfway through the fourth quarter. You're up 34-23 at that point. Not a game that's exactly put away, but certainly not a game where you're not feeling good about where things stand. And Memphis then took the ball, scored a touchdown, and SMU got the ball back. Great onside recovery by Austin Upshaw playing in his senior day. And even Rhett Lashlee kind of said it after the game. He probably would have done things similar in a way because they got the look they wanted with Rashee Rice, and usually Rashee comes down with that one on the third down play, I believe it was on that drive, or maybe the second down play when they're, you think if you're SMU, you're going to milk the clock and maybe take up some more time. Now think about this. I mean, hindsight's always 20/20, but SMU ends up punting that one away. Memphis takes the ball. They go down the field 70 yards, or they take the ball and they go right down the field. They get a huge screenplay to start that drive. And then you see things start to fall apart. Nick Roberts gets the penalty that would have had SMU potentially off the field on that touchdown drive earlier in the game to bring it within a one-score game. Things were not going right for SMU without a doubt. And defensively, that was when kind of the wheels started to really fall off. They had played well for the most part in the second half. They had made some stops. It is going to be one of those things where somebody has to make a play. But going back to that drive, if Rhett Lashlee runs the ball, let's say all 3 times and just goes with it, and Memphis cooks a timeout or 2 extra, then you're looking at Memphis getting down. Let's say kind of everything goes the same. Memphis getting down into field goal range, and they kick the field goal because they wouldn't have another timeout. Clock would be running. They spike it. They probably kick the field goal. Instead, they had that extra time because they had the extra timeouts. They're able to go ahead and take their shot to win the game. And Brandon Crosley steps in front of the pass and wins it for SMU. He's just kind of lurking. Huge play by Brandon Crosley. He's been very up and down throughout the course of the season. He's obviously a vocal guy, one of those types of players for SMU. But when you look at what he had done at times, he had stuck his nose in there at times. He had a couple huge pass breakups in the game. His highs were very much worth some of the lows that we saw out of him. So I think with SMU, they were down to Tyler Levine and TJ McDaniel and Roderick Daniels as running backs. And Levine, carried the load 25 times, 64 yards. They stuck with the run. And defensively, they were out without Stephon Wright. They didn't have Terrence Newman. Those are 2 guys when it came to the run defense that would have at least bolstered it a little bit. But I define that game as just kind of gritty for SMU. The weather sucked. They had every reason to kind of lay down a little bit after Tulane kind of ruined their chances for the AAC title game. And instead, they rallied and they said, you know what, this isn't how the season's going to end. And Rhett Lashlee got choked up about it in the locker room. They released a video early this week. And I've said it this year, I don't think this team has ever really quit. People overreact and they see things and they say, oh, they're quitting, they're mailing it in. I've not seen much quit out of this team. The Tulane game, they got run out of the building. That was the one game this year that I really feel like they haven't been truly competitive. Even UCF, when UCF pulled away, that one got ugly because SMU didn't capitalize on a great first half offensively. Came away with 13 points, I think it was. Then they have to press as UCF explodes in the second half. They go for it on 4th downs, and they're not able to get any points, and the score becomes what it is. That Tulane game is the only one they weren't competitive in all year. And even then, you saw some guys not giving up. Tyler Levine, the turnovers just sucked in that one. We don't have to rehash, but this team hasn't given up. And that's why I think this is a game. This is now a future where they go to the bowl, and you have to have some positivity about how it could work out. Granted, it's another situation where what team is going to show up, the team that doesn't turn the ball over, which, by the way, SMU had 0 turnovers in the game against Memphis. The lone turnover that won the turnover battle won the game for SMU. So I just feel like this team is really bonded together, and they want to finish this off as best they can. SMU went 3-1 in November, 4-1 over the last 5 games, if you count. I believe it was the Tulsa game. So they went. SMU finished with wins over Tulsa, Houston, South Florida, lost to Tulane, and then beat Memphis. So a 4-1 finish to the season in the last 5 games, and even that Cincinnati game came down to a 2-point conversion. So Rashee Rice, 13 receptions, 147 yards. Rhett Lashlee reveals he's been playing with not just turf toe, but actually a broken toe all season. Incredible, just effort, and he's going to play in the bowl game, which is insane. But that's the type of player he is, and that's the type of leader he is. And Tanner Mordecai gets a shot in the rib and breaks his ribs again and leaves the game at the end of the first half, which, by the way, shout out Kevin Henry Jennings for an incredible 97-yard touchdown drive right before the half. He comes back in and plays really well. And they come out hot in the second half. This team is gritty. I've said that. It's not perfect. There are holes. We know the defense is poor. We know there are deficiencies in the secondary. We know at times they give up huge plays. We know offensively sometimes it can be a little up and down with either personnel or play calling at times. But I will say, and you kind of saw it in the video, if you watched it in the locker room, these guys are together and they buy into what these coaches are saying. Hasn't always worked out. This is a very imperfect team. That's why they're 7-5. Turnovers and all those things have cost them plenty of games this year. But it was cool to see them, band together and really have that grit to beat a Memphis team that has had SMU's number at times over the years. So kudos to them. Kudos to the staff for making some adjustments to get them that hot start in the second half that really kind of carried the day. Moving forward, lots of things to be answered. We're getting into the transfer portal window now. The FCS window is open. We're seeing guys from the FBS level declare their intentions to enter the portal. We're seeing, I think that circling of the wagons for a lot of programs. All right, how head first are we going to go into the portal? Who's going to leave our roster? Who's going to go pro? Who's going to transfer? Who are we going to go after? That's what's happening right now this week. It's a dead period. Players are certainly allowed to talk with the staff and declare their intentions, and that's what we're seeing. I think SMU is going to have some guys transfer away. That'll really make, quite honestly, a good bit of sense to people. And we'll see some natural attrition. On the flip side of that, they have been very active on the JUCO front. They've been very active on the FCS front with a few offers. And we'll talk about all of that as we kind of jump into it on the backside of this podcast. But I think the first thing that I want to talk about is, where is SMU going to go bowling? I don't know. That is still to be worked out as the conference title games get played out. I think for SMU, there are two things that there's one thing that I'd love to see. I would love to see a local bowl against a big program. I'd love to see SMU Oklahoma in the First Responders Bowl. I think that'd be a ton of fun. Everybody wins on that one, and you get a marquee type of matchup. That isn't necessarily what we're seeing in bowl projections, not necessarily what I'm hearing right now. I'm hearing a couple bowls that are emerging, or three that I'll mention: the Birmingham Bowl, the Independence Bowl in Shreveport, and then the New Mexico Bowl. Those would all involve, or two of the three would involve, Power 5 opponents. And then if you go to the Independence Bowl, you're playing Army, most likely. We'll see if they need to fill someone if they don't get the waiver. I think it's something like they're 5-7, but 2 wins are against FCS, or there's something weird there where Army might not actually be eligible for it. But those are some of the bowls that are more spread out. And then I did see one, the Gasparilla Bowl in Tampa, which I've always been begging SMU to get because obviously it's where I'm from. But they would be matched up against Florida. That was one projection I saw yesterday. And it worked out because I'm actually in Tampa then for the holidays. So I think wherever SMU goes bowling, that's going to be a game where, can they do what they did against Memphis, which when you didn't have really anything to play for outside of your seniors, and that's going to be the same thing when it comes to the bowl. You're going to play for Rashee Rice. You're going to play for Tanner Mordecai, who's going pro. You're going to play for Jimmy Phillips or some of these other guys that are on the way out. Can they get motivated depending on where they're at and who they're playing and step up? It's going to be a game that you absolutely, I think, would love to see them win and break through. It's been years and years since they've won a bowl. It was years and years since SMU's gone 3-1 in November. I think Rhett Lashlee said it in the video, since 2009, I think, which is crazy. Maybe 2012, but still, what a run for SMU to finish this year. I know it's not perfect and no one's claiming it to be, but just talking with different people around the program, you can tell that the players and the coaches are proud of what they've put down for this season for the most part. It is a imperfect team that lost a lot of pieces that were supposed to be counted on. Jake Bailey, Bo Corrales, Trey Siggers, Terrence Newman in the Tulane game. They didn't have Stephon Wright a lot. Kamar Wheaton was banged up late. I mean, it's just one of those things where even Ben Redding, it's one of those things where it's not It's not ideal. And they've had guys step up throughout the year, whether it be Dylan Goffney, whether it be Roderick Daniels late. I mean, talk about the game he had as on special teams against Memphis after the gaff with the fair catch that pinned them back deep. He's really stepped up late. He looks like he could have a bright future if he wants it at SMU. And Kamar Wheaton and Tyler Levine stepping up in the run game when they've, when Kamar's been healthy and Tyler Levine's been a workhorse. It's all these things have happened and they haven't been good on defense, and they certainly have some deficiencies with personnel, and they're gonna go all out in the transfer portal to fix those. But to get to 7-5, they're proud of that. It's not perfect. It wasn't pretty. You blow a game like Maryland, you don't come out against Tulane. By the way, you would have been in the conference championship if you would have beaten Tulane, because then Tulane would have beaten Cincinnati if that would have worked out, and you're playing in the conference championship. That's how razor thin it is in this league at times. So I think there's a good bit to build off of. There are things that have to be worked on and fixed, and we're going to talk about that as we get into, where the transfer portal is heading for SMU and some of the things that we're expecting to happen, and areas of need for them as well. And then you also have the high school ranks. You have players down the stretch, a couple of them that they're really targeting. So let's jump into that. We've talked about the bowl. We've talked about kind of the season. And now the portal is going to open on Monday, December 5th, with the FBS window. This week is all about a lot of these staffs across country hearing from players that are on their team and going to enter the portal. They're hearing players that are declaring their intentions to enter the portal. They're hearing about players that are in the portal with coaching changes. We've seen that as well. And we'll mention a couple on here where that's applicable. But the whole thing right now is getting as organized as you can. You have your board now for FCS prospects, and for the most part, that's something that SMU will hit on here and there, certain players. And then you have your FBS board of expected guys, and you can start checking them off as they declare their intentions. And then you have the FBS guys that actually just enter on Monday, and that'll be kind of where you then finalize that board. And by the way, you have coaches that can go on the road and meet with these players just like the high school prospects and junior college prospects are after. So the transfer portal is about to be red hot. It is going to be wild. If you haven't picked up an On the Pony Express subscription, check us out. Give it a 7-day trial. Start it on Monday and enjoy the ride, and then stick on with us through the bowl and signing day and beyond. There are still Founders Club hats available. You can get those with your subscription. Look for the thread on the board. I'll bump it here. I try to bump it once a week, which has the instructions on how to order your hat. And you can get it in time for the bowl or to wear around the house during the holidays. So check us out. We've had a huge run of subscriptions over the last week or so. So appreciate all you guys who have subscribed to the site and also subscribed to ontheponyexpress.com's YouTube page. So be sure to do that if you don't already. Let's jump in with the transfer portal talk. Not going to give away all of our On 3+ content, which involves, kind of where I'm seeing some players pop up that I think SMU sits in a good spot for. We've talked a lot about some players that I could see SMU going after. We've also talked a lot about players that I think SMU is not going to go after. Some players that maybe aren't good enough, or I see them going elsewhere. This is going to be a wild time for SMU. Let's kind of run it back here. Let's start with some FCS guys that have earned offers from SMU. Daquan Felton out of Norfolk State has picked up an offer from SMU. He's a big body wide receiver, and I think that's a big need here. You have somebody like a Bo Corrales who could come back. I think there's a chance he just moves on, whether it be starting his life or maybe somewhere else one more time for him, just because he's been so nicked up. 39 catches for 573 yards and 7 scores. And you're going to say, well, what the heck? Why would they go after somebody that's just kind of okay at the FCS level? Well, Norfolk State was awful this year. So he's one of the best players on that team. He's picked up numerous Power 5 opportunities now. And he's also got numerous just FBS offers already. Big-bodied wideout. He'd fill a big need. You're losing Rashee Rice, who's a ball winner down the field. You're losing Bo Corrales potentially. And that is another guy who they view as a ball winner. This is somebody that I think is going to be one of many wide receivers they go after. I dropped an On3Plus article about an impact wideout that SMU is targeting from the FBS level. Be sure to check that out. Big time prospect who had well over 1,000 yards this year for his team. So check that out. SMU is going to go hard after him. That's on the message board. And then another one, Chandler Martin out of East Tennessee State. I like this offer a lot. And here's why. He does it all. Somebody that, led his team in tackles, led his team in sacks, led his team in tackles for loss, and played early. He was a honor roll member in 2020, the season that didn't count. And then in 2021, he played in just 4 games. But this is a guy that was dominant in 2022. Would have had over 100 tackles if he had played in every game, but I think he only missed one. Really, really impressive player that SMU is now in on. They've offered. He's the first one that you can kind of say, okay, all right, that one would fit really well in the middle of that defense. All right, those are the FCS guys that really stick out to me. If I'm missing one, I'm sorry, and we've talked about it on the board. But those are the FCS guys. We'll kind of move into the JUCO ranks now, and we're not going to talk much about the FBS guys. And here's why: there aren't many that for SMU I can really talk about. There are guys that make sense that are going to be in the portal officially on Monday. There is one guy that I think is worth noting, Jonathan McGill, the Stanford defensive back. We posted some notes on him. He's a Coppell, Texas native. He was a team captain for the Cardinal this year. He's going to be a graduate transfer with 2 years remaining. Posted some notes on him and kind of where I see things playing out for him. Going to be an interesting one to follow there. But he's a graduate transfer, and he's also a part of a coaching change. So he can be in the portal, and he can be contacted and all that stuff. On the high school front, kind of going back, 2 players that are on the board and being pursued by the staff. I've posted notes on both of them on the board. 2023 Everman defensive tackle, Kevin Allen, a big body. He dropped his top 7. He included SMU along with Wyoming, North Texas, Sam Houston, Washington State, and a couple others in there. And posted some notes on the board about him. We caught up with him. And then SMU just extended an offer to a Colorado commitment out of Grand Prairie, Keller Central, Adrian Wilson, not the former I think he was all pro with the Cardinals, but not the former NFL safety, although that'd be nice. He was a longtime Colorado commit. They're going through a coaching change. Craig Niver dialed him up and said, hey, let's get the offer in. Let's get you to campus. And so I posted some notes about where things stand with him. That offer went out just before I jumped on the pod to record, and I'm going to have a full story with Adrian shortly after the podcast. And I think you look through some of the senior tape, and you see a guy like that after what Craig Niver dialed up with Ahmad Moses late after he got to SMU. You got to feel good about his evals. Ahmad's going to be a really good player for SMU for years to come. Got some good burn, and he got the start against Memphis. So like that offer. Let's go to the junior college ranks. Amon Otis. I think I'm saying that right. This year, the 6'3", 300-pounder defensive tackle racked up 40 tackles, 9 tackles for loss, 3 sacks on the year. SMU is going to bring him in for an official visit. We posted some notes on him. He's a big name to monitor down the stretch without a doubt. If you're SMU fans looking for some help in the middle, that is one right off the bat that you've got to note. Along the junior college ranks, defensive back, it's going to be a target in both the transfer portal and the junior college level. Bishop Fitzgerald is one that I think SMU is really high on. They're trying to get an official visit scheduled with him. He's out of Coffeyville, and has already taken a Utah State official visit. But Maryland and Indiana are circling him. He just had a Louisville offer. He was player of the year in the conference. he would be a huge addition for SMU on the back end. And then another one I'll note, Matthew Littlejohn is another one they're really high on, another junior college prospect who's originally from the state of Texas. He plays for Citrus College and has added, a few offers as well. He would have 2 years of eligibility. He's added Cal, Liberty, App State, Old Dominion, Hawaii, USF, Oregon State. Those are the schools talking to him the most. So keep an eye on him. And look, I think the junior college secondary part of it is going to be something where you see SMU get some guys in, and they could be players that kind of fill roles. Or in Bishop Fitzgerald's case, I think it could be somebody that plays right away, probably starts. But then you look at other players that have, a couple of years. They're older. I look at somebody like Blinn College cornerback Ben Osuki. We've talked a lot about him in the past on the board. He was in attendance for Saturday's game against Memphis, so he's already taken an unofficial visit. He's a Texas native. Had 33 tackles, a tackle for loss, and 1 pick on the year. He could be somebody that's more of a rotational guy. They could be losing a lot of their depth in the secondary, and they need players to really step in and contribute at that spot without a doubt. Wrapping it up here, I think as far as needs, I think wide receiver is going to be one. They need some more outside guys. You have Jordan Curley, you have Dylan Goffney, you have Roderick Daniels, you have Jake Bailey coming back, but there needs to be more depth as we've seen. Running back is one I still think that they could be in on some guys, and I posted one that makes sense for the subscribers to check out. And I think, again, that goes back to depth. You ended the year with Tyler Levine, TJ McDaniel, and Roderick Daniels as your running back rotation. What happens with Brandon Epton? What happens with Monte Dawson, Jalen Record? All those guys haven't played really much at all. So what happens with those players will be something to watch. I'm not saying they're going to transfer for sure, but it's just something to watch. Then you add tight end. Tight end is a position that they probably need to address. They lose Ben Redding. They have a stud in RJ Maryland, but they also don't have any really answers behind that you can rely on. So they have Lonnie Johnson in the 2023 class. They have Trip Reardon, so they're adding some depth there from the high school ranks, but they probably need a veteran guy or two to come in right away and contribute. And then they always want to upgrade the offensive line. They're going to return most of that group, which is a good thing. They're going to lose Jalen Thomas. And then outside of that, I think everybody's back. So a really, really good group that'll return for SMU. I might be missing one that might be leaving, but still good group coming back. They played really well down the stretch, I felt like. And then you get into the defensive side of the ball, and that's everywhere. And I don't mean that disrespectfully to any of the guys like Elijah Chapman that are coming back, Devere Levelston that are coming back. They've got a good young core of pass rushers on this team, but you also lose Gary Wiley. Junior Aho walked on senior day, and he had a year at least of eligibility remaining. And then you lose Terrence Newman in there as well. And Stephon Wright, what's his future like if he's really, not been able to stay healthy? Does he, hang it up potentially? They've also addressed that position pretty well in the signing class already. They're trying for Kevin Allen, the Everman defensive tackle that we talked about, but they still need to add more depth, especially in the middle. They need bigger guys. That was one thing. They missed a Mike Williams in the middle of that defense, without a doubt. So linebacker, another big position need. We saw them offer Chandler Martin out of East Tennessee. We've seen them go after numerous JUCO defensive backs. We've seen them probably circling internally some defensive backs as well from the transfer portal. And then they just offered Adrian Wilson out of Keller Central. So lots of change on the defensive side of the ball. And then they probably need to go find a punter as well, with Ryan Buchevsky moving on as well. So lots of things to come for SMU. The dead period for SMU, I believe, ends this weekend. So they'll be able to go out and watch state championship games and things like that. Not state championship, but state semifinal games, or gosh, what round are we in Texas? But they will be able to go out and watch regional final games. I'm sorry. And see some of their players in action. They'll also be able to go on the road and do some in-home visits if they'd like. And that stuff will start heating up. And then they're also going to use those for transfer portal guys. So it's going to be a really, really busy time. Definitely pick up an On3 subscription. Again, you get the hat, and it's going to be a heck of a time on the board. It's a good time to be on the board. Signing day and this whole month of December is going to be wild. If you weren't on board with us for the transfer portal last year, I like to think we were pretty all over it. So subscribe. Appreciate you guys listening. Sorry it took till Wednesday to get this out, but it's just been a busy time. We've been tracking transfers and doing all those things. So appreciate you guys listening, and we will catch you guys next time, maybe with some additions to talk about on the Pony Express podcast. So have a great rest of your week. Might not hear from me again. We'll be in portal mode. But if you do, it might be with some news. So thanks for listening, guys, and we'll catch you next time.